A shocking prisoner exchange agreement. El Salvador repatriated 250 Venezuelans accused of belonging to the Tren de Aragua criminal organization in exchange for 10 American citizens detained in Venezuela. This last-minute deal reveals diplomatic maneuvering between the United States, Venezuela, and President Bukele.
The U.S. government and El Salvador have announced that El Salvador will organize the repatriation of approximately 250 Venezuelan citizens currently detained, in exchange for the release of several American citizens held in Venezuela. Specifically, the Central American nation carried out a prisoner exchange, which included migrants previously deported by the United States and currently held in the notorious terrorism confinement center, Secot prison. This move was intended to facilitate the release of 10 American citizens by Venezuela. According to the plan, the flight carrying the group of migrants would leave El Salvador by late Friday and land at Maiquetía International Airport in Venezuela. A senior official in the U.S. administration stated that, following this release, there would be no American citizens held by the Nicolás Maduro government in Venezuela. On Friday, in a post on the platform X, El Salvador's leader Nayib Bukele announced, "Today, we have returned all Venezuelan citizens detained in our country, who were accused of being members of the criminal organization Tren de Aragua, TDA." He said the exchange was carried out in return for a large number of Venezuelan political prisoners, including U.S. citizens. U.S. Secretary of State Mark Rubio, in a separate statement, also confirmed information about the exchange. He expressed thanks to President Bukele and U.S. officials. Nevertheless, U.S. officials have so far refused to publicly disclose the identities of any American citizens released under the agreement, citing privacy protection concerns. One of those released was former U.S. Navy SEAL Wilbert Joseph Castaneda. He had been arrested in Venezuela during a personal trip last year. The Venezuelans being repatriated this time had been deported to El Salvador earlier this year by the Trump administration. The deportation order was based on the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, which allows the U.S. president to detain and deport nationals from countries deemed enemies without following normal legal procedures. One of those repatriated was Oscar González Pineda, whose mother, Mrs. Gertrudis, lives in western Venezuela. She said she was very happy, her heart filled with joy, and added, "I am very grateful to God. Grateful to President of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, for fighting to free them, and grateful to the lawyers in El Salvador." Oscar had been working in tiling and carpeting when he was detained by immigration authorities in Dallas. He thought he would be transferred to a detention center in Texas, but was instead sent to the Secot prison as part of a group of 252 deported Venezuelans. Gertrudis has always insisted that Oscar had no ties to the Tren de Aragua gang. On Friday, a senior Trump administration official told reporters that El Salvador had independently decided to release the group of Venezuelan prisoners, whom the country believed to be gang members, on humanitarian grounds. However, some relatives of those deported from Venezuela completely denied any connection to any criminal organizations. The official also revealed that the complex agreement was finalized at the last minute and only publicly confirmed after the plane carrying the American citizens had exited Venezuelan airspace on Friday afternoon. He said, "We are dealing with a regime that always has a certain degree of instability on their side, and a certain degree of instability on ours. In the end, everything worked out. Everything was fine, and everyone was safe on their way to reunite with their families." The relationship between El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele and U.S. President Donald Trump has grown warmer recently, particularly after Bukele agreed to detain migrants deported by the U.S. This exchange, facilitated by El Salvador, has demonstrated the strong cooperative relationship between the two leaders. Trump and Bukele, who has self-proclaimed as the world's coolest dictator. An administration official said, "This deal would not have been possible without President Bukele. We express our deepest gratitude." During a visit to the White House in April, Bukele and Trump displayed a friendly relationship in front of the press, even sharing jokes and laughter together. Bukele supported the deportation of migrants from the US to El Salvador's maximum security prison, SECOT. At the time, Trump remarked that Bukele is really helping America, while Bukele affirmed that his country very much wants to help. It was during this period that Bukele first proposed a plan to exchange deported Venezuelan citizens for the release of political prisoners, including relatives of opposition figures, journalists, and activists detained during Venezuela's 2024 election crackdown. Bukele wrote on X, directly addressing Maduro, "The only reason they are imprisoned is for opposing you and your election fraud. However, I propose a humanitarian deal including the full repatriation of 100% of the 252 deported Venezuelans, in exchange for the release and handover of an equivalent number, 252, of the thousands of political prisoners you are holding." The Maduro administration rejected the proposal. A U.S. official confirmed that they saw it as an important opportunity to bring American citizens home from Venezuela. Another senior Trump administration official stated that although the agreement only concerned the release of U.S. citizens, the government was still actively working to secure the release of dozens of political prisoners currently detained by the Maduro regime. At present, the United States does not maintain official diplomatic relations with Venezuela and continues to impose harsh sanctions on the country. A U.S. government official confirmed that the lifting of sanctions was not part of the negotiations in this prisoner exchange. The issue of deportation to El Salvador was publicly raised earlier this year in the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland resident who was wrongly deported to El Salvador. He alleged that he was tortured and brutally beaten during his detention at the SECOT prison. Previously, the Trump administration had accused Abrego Garcia, a Salvadoran national, of being a member of the Salvadoran criminal gang MS-13, a claim vehemently denied by his lawyers and relatives. By July, he had been brought back to the United States to face charges related to human trafficking, charges which he denied in court.